Yeah, but one shutout in 17 years, not that impressive to the fine folks of ESPN, apparently. Good morning, everybody. It is a Wednesday edition of the Spielman and Hooley We Tackle Life podcast. Mr. Spielman is here on a frigid morning in the hinterlands.
I got to tell you.
Wow. But there are people up who have an agenda this morning.
I'm convinced there's a conspiracy against me. That's the mean streets of Plain City. Are we in Plain City or what?
We are outside Plain City.
We're outside of Plain City.
An undisclosed location, yeah, like Mark Levin, in a bunker somewhere in case they come looking for him.
So I'm driving here, and there happens to be, I'm the only person on the road, me and another car, and they're tailgating me, and I'm going the speed limit because there's bus stops and schools, and it's that time of day.
It wasn't mayhem from Allstate, was it?
And it might have been mayhem. By the way, I think it's a great act.
That is a great act and a great commercial, yeah.
I don't know his name, but I think he's really good. And the guy's tailgating me. Are you kidding me? So then I'm thirsty, so I go in the Hooley Mantor.
The Hooley refrigerator, the Hooley basement refrigerator.
The refreshments choice.
Refreshment center.
So I go and look, and I like Diet Coke or Diet Pepsi, whatever. And then there's Diet Right.
Diet Right. Well, that's the cold stuff. There might be Diet Coke or Diet Pepsi on top of the fridge. I don't know.
Right.
Diet Right.
I
We're old school here.
I haven't seen Diet Right since 1984 at Burger Chef on Cleveland Avenue in Massillon, Ohio.
Burger Chef.
Give me a cheeseburger and a Diet Right. I mean, are you serious? Diet Right?
I don't do the shopping, sir. That was you'll have to take that up with the boss of the house.
I will. She's getting a strongly worded email later.
She should. She absolutely should get a strongly worded email. And so should ESPN. They're out with their top 150 college football coaches of all time list. And you know how this works. You look for it on the web. And so it's, got a page down, and I'm thinking, well, I don't see Urban on, like, they got Paul Bear Bryant there on one. Okay, I'll tell you why I think that's bogus in a moment. But then I'm paging down, I see Newt Rockne, and I see Nick Saban, and I'm like, what?
Saban's two,
right? What? Yeah, Saban's two. And I'm like, okay, like Tom Osborne, and I keep going, and I keep going, and I keep going, and I get to, oh, there he is. Not at number 4, not at number 6, and not even if you add those together, not at number 10. You put 4 and 6 together, he's 46th on their list of the top 150 college football coaches of all time. A guy with a 900 winning percentage at Ohio State, a 7-0 record against Michigan, the third of his 3 national championship rings. I believe he's the first or second all-time winning percentage coach at all 4 places he's coached: Bowling Green, Utah, Florida, and here. 46th. Been a lot of great coaches, apparently, that I'm unaware of.
Well, I mean, first of all, I don't want to disparage any of the other coaches ahead of him, because all those guys are great coaches, right? And just because we say somebody's great doesn't diminish the greatness of somebody else.
Correct.
And when I look at Urban and what he's been able to do at Bowling Green, at Utah, at Florida, it's been remarkable. I'm biased because I think he's a top 3 and interchangeable at that top 3 position. I do believe they got it right with Saban. Plus, I think for me, I look at it, and people and coaches that I've dealt with and live in my generation, I would say this generation of coaches, it's more difficult to win now than it was back when Paul Bear Bryant and all those guys, and Woody in their heyday. Because, first of all, there was 120-some scholarships back then. Now there's 85, right?
Right.
And so...
there was unlimited scholarships back then. You could bring in 40 freshmen, 50 freshmen if you want. If you had the money to pay, you could pay it.
So
unlimited.
I always looked at it, too, Bruce, from the point of... I think parity is good for the game. And so that's been good for the game. But I think for this generation... or ever since the 85 scholarship thing kicked into place, or whatever it was, even when I was playing. I don't know what it was when I was playing. I don't think it was much.
Probably 95. Probably 95.
Okay, so when you're talking about that, and also guys leaving early, and the rules that are set up, and like a place like Ohio State, when you lose guys to the NFL, I think what Urban has been able to accomplish at every different level in college football, you're talking about the MAC, with Bowling Green. I believe Utah was in the Mountain West at the time that Urban was with the Utes. Then, of course, what he was able to do at Florida and at Ohio State, there's an argument to be made that he is the top, or like I said, at the very least, he's arguably in the top three. Then those three could be interchangeable, in my opinion.
Yeah, you articulated some of the reasons why Urban at 46th is laughable. I will just put it in terms that I think everybody listening to this podcast who's a father or a mother can understand. Is it more difficult to parent now, or is it more difficult to parent when you were a kid? I would argue it's much more difficult to parent now because we all have to, be aware of social media. We all have.
But every generation says that.
But every generation is right when they say that because because technology moves to the point and modern whatever move to the point where the challenges of that day are greater than the challenges before. Like when you're in the prairie pioneer days, your kids lived in a log cabin with you and were with you 24/7.
Yeah.
And then when you get into the industrial age, okay, you're working outside the home, or the dad is, and then you get to the point where the dad and the mom are starting to work outside the home.
Well, and the kids back
60s.
then were working in factories too early on.
Yeah, but I mean, here's the thing. Like now, here are things that Bernie Bierman and Bud Wilkinson and Eddie Robinson and all these guys are in the top 10. Didn't have to deal with. They didn't have to deal with social media. They didn't have to deal with their players doing or saying something on social media that blows up and they have to deal with it. Coaches today have to deal with a much different attitude toward discipline from their players than the players of the 50s. Like you grew up, what the coach said, gospel, right? Coach, grab your face mask. Coach, slap you around. Coach, do whatever they wanted to do. And there was no accountability for that. There was a different attitude toward discipline. Integration. The integration of college football, Bear Bryant coached a fair amount of time before the integration of college football. And yes, I know, Bear Bryant fans, he was the first in the SEC to integrate because USC came down there with Sam Bam Cunningham, and he was like, well, we can't play like this much longer. So there's
Wilbur
just
Jackson,
a lot of,
I believe, was the first.
Wilbur Jackson at Alabama,
Great
yes.
running back.
So integration has played a part in it. You mentioned that I hadn't even have that on my list, and you're right. Losing guys to the NFL. That didn't happen I would say, for all of Bear's career.
Yeah, no.
I mean, you got a great player. Yeah. You had him for 4 years. It was just unfathomable. Herschel Walker was the first guy to do that in like the 80s.
It's USFL, and I believe that was
I'm going to say 82, 84, 85,
somewhere.
So anyway, all these factors are why I would say that just like it's more difficult to parent now, it's more difficult to coach now. And oh, by the way, let me mention the number one reason. Generally, we grade these guys. You wouldn't be on this list unless you won a lot of games, right? And a lot of national championships. A national championship is a barometer. Is it easier to win a national championship now when you have to win a league championship game at the end, a couple of playoff games, and you're definitely going to play the absolute best team? Or was it easier to win a championship in the eras where, well, we're the SEC, so we play in the Sugar Bowl. So the Sugar Bowl champ is undefeated, and they're ranked number one, and they go to the SEC, and oh, look, there's no, the other best team's in the Big 12, but they're in the Orange Bowl. The other best team's in the Big 10, and they're in the Rose Bowl. So we're going to get like 2-loss, I don't know, Notre Dame. We're going to get 1-loss Penn State. It's much, much harder to win a national championship now. And you mentioned the parity. That's driven by TV money and TV networks. Do you think Bear Bryant worried about Mississippi State beating him? Like that
you think Woody
somebody
worried
could
about
go
Indiana or Illinois beating them?
Dan Mullen could go to Mississippi State and get Dak Prescott and have them ranked number one in the country? No way. So to have this list with all the old timers on it, fine. If you want to break it up by era, fine. But I
think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, just come on with the 46th on Urban. I mean, come on with that.
Yeah.
And I'll just
you're not the biggest Urban. I don't want to say fan, but you're not a shill for Urban.
I was going to say I recognize that Urban has some flaws, and Urban has, but just be fair. I'm about being fair. Okay, so the reason why I point out Urban's flaws is because I think it's fair. to point out his flaws.
But
so it's also fair to say this is a joke. He's 46th. He's in the top 3. He just is.
Who made the committee? Who picked
Oh,
this?
it's a bunch of guys from ESPN who I like. Ivan Mazel's a really wonderful guy. And,
right.
I thought, look, I mean, let's be, and Ivan was really, really honest. The whole, gist of what you need to know is the last paragraph of the intro. He says, take this list, pour a beverage, read it and weep, or weed it and reap the benefit of knowing better than the panel.
Did you say weed it?
Yeah, weed it. In other words, get the junk out of it, which we just did. It's always for entertainment purposes only. Right. They did the list to spark discussion, and they're sparking discussion, so they got what they wanted. I go into it eyes wide open. Look, just to put it in Ohio State terms, to have Woody and Jim Tressel ahead of Urban Meyer is just not correct. It's just not.
No, again, I go back to it's not diminishing what Coach Tressel was able to do at Youngstown State and, of course, here at Ohio State.
Let me just say right here, you said I'm not the biggest Urban fan. People know, I got a lot of press for saying that Ohio State should have sat Tress down at the time of Tattoo-Gate. I never said they should fire him. I said they should sit him down, which, by the way, they did with Urban. So what I advocated for Tress is what they did with Urban. But to have Woody ahead of Jim Tressel is wrong. Because Jim Tressel won playoff national championships at Youngstown State.
Multiple times.
Jim Tressel, 4 times. Jim Tressel came to Ohio State and killed the Michigan rivalry. Killed it. He killed Michigan. Jim Tressel's the guy. Troy Smith was his hitman, but Jim Tressel's the guy who did it.
That's part of hiring the right hitman.
Well, it's part of being smart enough to say, I have Justin Zwick in the same recruiting class, and he's my quarterback of the future. But this kid at Glenville, he's just a little bit too good of a football player for us to pass up. Let's bring him in. And on the recruiting list, when they signed him, they put next to Troy Smith's name, ATH, athlete. They didn't know where they were going to put him.
Right.
But they didn't let him go anywhere else. And that's part of coaching. That's part of seeing the future. So Jim Tressel should be ahead of Woody, because I know Tress lost 2 national championship games. I got news for you, Buckeye fans. Woody blew a national championship in 1969, 1970, and 1975. If you have the greatest college football player of all time, Archie Griffin, and you don't win a national championship with him, I got to put Jim Tressel and Urban Meyer ahead of you.
Urban Meyer is the greatest coach in Ohio State history, and I say that without diminishing Coach Hayes or Coach Tress.
We've had a lot of great coaches. 5. Earl and Coop are on this list, too. So you have
Hall
5
of
of the top one. I think Francis Schmidt's on it. I don't know if Paul Brown's on it. So they've had at least 6 of the top 150.
Yeah, well, and again, I get what ESPN's doing, and I think it's more accurate to break it down, because those guys, I'm looking at a picture. You have Paul Bear Bryant up right now, and you talk about Bud Wilkinson or Tom Osborne. I think if you break it down by era, a top 10 in each era, then I think that would be more accurate. But there's no doubt for me that Saban should be on that list. But right, Urban at 46. It almost sounds like it's somebody.
Personal.
They're taking it personal to drop him to 46.
That's just ridiculous.
There's a guy, I don't even know if he's on the list, but I thought the winningest coach of all time was a guy named John Gagliardi.
Gagliardi, from D3 coach.
But you don't say the G in there. I actually did. Okay. John Gagliardi, I think it is. From St. John's. And he was totally opposite of every coach that you've ever known. I did a game where they beat Mountain Union in the Division III National Championship game down in Salem, West Virginia. How they prepared for the game was they all played Tecmo Bowl or Madden game or whatever it was, video games. That's how they would do their coverages. They'd come out and they would not do any organized warm-ups. They would do roll around on the ground, and they would laugh and punch each other in the pads. And when the game started, boom!
He says in the write-up on him, they did not tackle in practice. They did not lift weights. They did not practice longer than 90 minutes. And they didn't lose.
And he's the winningest coach in the history of college football. I think has the most wins, or at one time did at least. I know that.
Yeah. Now listen, I admire greatly, and I know you do, because maybe to the detriment of some of our fans, Bo Schembechler. Bo 20th without ever winning a national championship. 26 spots ahead of Urban. I mean, just come on.
It is what it is. It's fine. I think if some of that might be their impact on college football too. You know
Well,
what
Bo
I mean?
built the rebuilt the Michigan
did.
program. Lou Holtz is 23rd. It's just.
Didn't Lou have like problems after every school that he left when they're or there is that with every coach where there's always issues?
I don't know enough about that to answer your question.
Okay.
I don't know about that. Here's one of my issues with Osborne being 4th. He inherited a program from Bob Devaney that won back-to-back national championships. Like, he was Devaney's assistant, and he just stepped right in. That's not to say Tom Osborne didn't do a great job. It's to say that a coach who built something had a harder job than Tom Osborne did. So, but Osborne's a nice guy. Everybody likes gentleman Tom Osborne. So, Urban 46.
That's
I would have all modern guys on my top. I would. I'd have Pete Carroll up there because USC was way down, and Pete Carroll built USC.
Yeah.
Pete Carroll, Nick Saban, Urban Meyer, and I'm probably forgetting somebody. I'd start with those 3.
Well, I think you have to put Dabo Swinney up.
Dabo, thank you. Yes, Dabo, for sure.
For what he's been able to do at Clemson. And remember, Dabo took over that program. He was not even the offensive coordinator. I believe he was the wide receivers coach at the time.
That's correct.
And then when Dabo took that over, I give credit to the AD or whoever made that decision for recognizing the leadership skills of Dabo Swinney and what he's been able to build and maintain at Clemson has certainly been impressive and something that I admire. The other one I think is some of it with Newt Rockne at Notre Dame. Interesting thing about Newt Rockne is that Newt Rockne All-American was a book we talked about that I read over and over and over as a kid. And I believe that Newt Rockne really made the forward pass, or the passing game was really innovative. So those are factors that you can put in. And some people say that, Urban Meyer took the spread option or the read option game to a different level.
No doubt.
And it is fun to talk about, but you're right. 46 is ridiculous. I think at the lowest you can rank Urban Meyer, and I think this is way too low, but I can see where it could happen, would probably be 8th.
Yeah, he can't be outside the top 10
No,
with 3 championships in the playoff era.
But
he just can't be.
And dominating at Bowling Green, at Utah, at Florida, at Ohio State, and the programs that he built. And when you're that good of a coach, and you can say this about Coach Saban too, you build programs, you step on a lot of toes to do it.
Sure.
I mean, you got to fire people, you got to get what you want, you got to be, it's hard to do. It is a very difficult job to do, and for Urban to be able to do that everywhere he's been is cool. And we got a chance to see it up close, and who knows, maybe we'll see it with the Dallas Cowboys.
You got some news on that, do you?
No, I just want to see your.
Okay.
I want to see your reporter.
I'd love to see it.
Go
I'd love to see what he can
There's
do.
No, I would too, but I got to tell you, man. I just don't know. There's certain guys that are built for the NFL, and certain guys that aren't built for the NFL. And for me, I know. I'm not saying that he couldn't be great and couldn't be a great head coach in the NFL, because obviously I think he could, and he'd need to surround himself with, everybody. Obviously he would, that has some impact in the game as far as everything goes in the personnel world, the scouting world, the developmental part of it. It's just a different game. On the field stuff, I think he would be great, and I think he would hire great coaches, and he knows so many coaches. The one thing that I would be concerned about is that, it's not uncommon. Like if you watch the Eagles are 6-7, right? Or 6-7. Yeah, they're 6-7, tied with the Cowboys in the NFC East. And you watch how the Eagles and getting booed at halftime and losing 4 in a row, but you're still in the hunt. I don't know if Coach Meyer can lose 4 in a row, because I know what losing does to him. I don't know if he's built for that type of non-domination, yet you still have to be able to hang in there.
Well, here's a
do you agree with that? Or?
I do. On its face, I do. But maybe we could look at it a bit differently, and I'm just throwing this out as a consideration. In the college football realm, you can't lose. start the season knowing you can't lose. If you do, you seriously imperil your ability to win a championship, right?
Yeah.
In the NFL realm, you got what, a 5-game cushion? 11-5, you're going to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
11-5, you're going to make the playoffs. I mean, maybe that would take some of the stress and maybe take some of it off. Maybe it would, and he'd just be like, "Look, we're built." Your focus would be different. College football, you got to be ready every single week. You got to be primed and ready. If you play a big time opener, you got to be ready every week. In the NFL, you do too.
Yeah.
But I mean, in the NFL, don't we agree that Belichick kind of looks at September as like an extended preseason and like I want to be building toward the end? I'm not saying you ever give away a game. I'm just saying that you have.
Well, I think
in the NFL, you have. I guess my larger point is in the NFL, you have a bigger cushion, and you need to be building toward. You need to be at your best at the end of the year.
You need to be. The mindset of the NFL is, first of all, get to the playoffs, right? And you're always working for position in the playoffs because statistically speaking, if you get so many home field playoff games, your chances of advancing. I mean, there's numbers that back that up. And again, maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I can't get out of my mind when Urban said was it on the radio? Was it on Colin Cowherd? That's the Dallas Cowboys.
Well, he was being asked about Lincoln Riley in Dallas, and he said, I don't really know Lincoln Riley, but as for the Cowboys job, boy, that's a job, you know.
That's
the
Dallas Cowboys.
That's the job, and then Cowherd was like, the way Urban talked about it, Cowherd was like, well, would you be interested? I'd have to listen, you know, something like that. That's a general paraphrase of what he said. So, hey, Jerry, don't forget about me. I'm over here.
Hey, how did you let that Joe Burrow get out of the state of Ohio?
Man,
we actually had him on the roster for 3 years.
Boy, Urban was was much kinder to Colin because of his Fox relationship than he would have been, and you know, any knucklehead who would.
Well,
and I don't mean Colin's a knucklehead. I just mean in that instance, his producers did not serve him well.
Well, he should know that.
He should.
I mean, I make mistakes all the time.
He should. And sometimes you make a mistake where you just go, "How in the world did I not do that?"
But
and that's one of them.
But I don't know if he ever came back and like when I make a mistake on the air, I usually try to correct it immediately.
Yeah.
If I make a
best
mistake,
way to do it.
I do, and I screwed that up. Here's what it is. But that one to me was like, how did you not? I mean, we're talking about some quarterback that's having a good year. We're talking about a Heisman Trophy candidate quarterback that everybody that follows college football understands that Joe Burrow had a 3-year career, got beat out by Dwayne Haskins.
Yeah, you would think just because Burrow materializes virtually out of nowhere, you would be like, well, where was this kid as a sophomore?
Yeah.
Where was this kid? Like, how did he not play at LSU before last year? Oh, he was at Ohio State. Oh, okay. So,
but that's the Urban that I know, right? That's the good guy.
Yeah.
You imagine Urban in a press conference and
if somebody had asked him that college football playoff championship game, how'd you let Joe Burrow get out of Ohio?
Could you imagine his response?
Well, you wouldn't have to imagine it because the other media people in the room would be like,
oh man,
we eat our own on that one as we should. Speaking of eating, Spiels, I had the chance to have some Stover Farms custom meat hamburger this week.
You did?
Oh my goodness, so good, so delicious, so moist. That's what you get when you get certified Angus beef. Trevor Stover, father of Cade Stover, Buckeye linebacker, defensive end, grows that Angus beef on his farm in the Lexington, Mansfield area. They process it right there on site. Everything's certified by the state, and they bring it to their retail store at 4000 Presidential Parkway in Powell. Steaks, they are vacuum packed. You go in, beautiful display cases, pork, chicken, all of it non-GMO, no hormones. It is so good. They will work with you on processing your own beef. You're a farmer, you got your own beef, or you buy a steer from a friend or whatever. Stover Farms will custom process it for you to your liking if you'd like to give a really thoughtful gift. And this is a great idea for businesses. When I worked for a company in Cleveland, endorsed for a roofing company, every year I'd get a box of steaks from my friends. Shout out Todd, Clyde, Scotty Runyon at Runyon Roofing in Cleveland, in Menor, actually. And boy, if you're a Central Ohio business, any business in the state of Ohio, and you'd like to really, treat your clients to a unique and delicious Christmas gift, how about let Stover Farms prepare a custom gift pack for you of steaks, chops, whatever.
You know what goes good with Stover's custom meats? Diet right.
Look at that, man. You inhaled that Diet Right.
Diet right.
You want me to go get you another
I
one?
haven't had it since 1983,
No.
and it's just as bad now as it was back then.
On the way home, he's going to stop at the local mini mart and get a whole 6-pack of that. Pay $12 for it. Podcast is going to be much better now that you have that in you and you're suitably caffeinated.
Yes. Oh, yes, I am. All right. What do we got next?
StoverFarmsCustomMeats.com is the website. All right. You mentioned Joe Burrow. I had a question here for you. Let's go into the Wayback Machine. How would history be different at Ohio State if Joe Burrow had never broken his hand? Just to refresh people's memories, Joe Burrow redshirted his freshman year. As a freshman, then he's behind J.T. Barrett. This is 2016. Joe is a redshirt sophomore. Dwayne Haskins is a redshirt freshman. And Joe is the number 2 quarterback. And in one day in practice, he's just throwing a little short pass, and a lineman was close, a defensive lineman. He hit his hand, as you see often. Baker Mayfield did it just a few weeks ago against the Steelers. He hit his hand, Joe did, on a lineman's helmet and broke his hand. And so he was out for, 6-8 weeks, somewhere in there. By that time, we got to have a backup quarterback. So Dwayne Haskins had come in. He'd played a few snaps. And Dwayne Haskins stayed the backup. And then at Michigan, J.T. Barrett went down in the middle of the game. They're behind. Dwayne Haskins leads the Buckeyes to 3 consecutive scoring drives. And in spring ball that year, it was after J.T. had graduated, it was a competition. But how do you not play the kid who basically won you the Michigan game?
Well, and I think it turned out to be the right decision, too, because with Dwayne Haskins, through what, 50?
50 touchdown passes.
Through 50?
And almost 5,000 yards passing. And you went 13-1 and won the Rose Bowl.
And I think Joe would have put up similar numbers, but I think it's been remarkable to watch what Joe's been able to do at LSU. And really, you think about Joe Burrow pretty much saved LSU's program. They didn't have a quarterback. They've always had troubles finding that quarterback, consistency out of that position year after year, in my opinion.
Yeah, they've vastly underachieved for their talent. A program that had Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, on and on and on offensively. They just never had a good passing attack.
What Joe's been able to do, I think I'm going to predict that Joe Burrow is going to be your Heisman Trophy winner, which is nice to have a Buckeye as a Ohio State graduate as a
yes.
That's the truth.
We put a little. Do we do a special trophy case?
We should absolutely.
I mean, that's going to be a trophy. How many Ohio State graduates have won? How many guys who played football at Ohio State have won the Heisman Trophy? You'd have to include Joe Burrow in that.
I actually think it's one of the coolest stories, and it's a strong argument of why the transfer portal works. And it's, for me, it is because, Joe wasn't going to beat out Dwayne Haskins. Joe knew that, and he had an opportunity. And what I love about Joe is that he could have gone to a program not as high profile as LSU.
Cincinnati, Nebraska were two right there.
Yeah, they would have loved, believe me, they would have loved to have Joe Burrow, right? And Joe decided to go to LSU and beat everybody out. And now is going to be the Heisman Trophy winner of 2019. It's a great story, and he couldn't be happier for the guy. And, you have to look. Is he going to be the number one guy? And are the Bengals going to be able to take him? I think you have to take a strong look at that. And is this the guy that you want to build and you're ready to start over and you're going to be patient with him? And is this the guy you want to build with?
I think yes, they are, and I think they should. And I've said, and I want to apologize. We said earlier, when you make a mistake, apologize. A few weeks ago, I said, why would the Bengals let Andy Dalton go and draft Andy Dalton? Now, having watched Joe Burrow, I don't think he's Andy Dalton at all. I think he's Aaron Rodgers in attitude, and by that I mean Joe's got an edge to him, man. Yeah. He doesn't suffer fools, and he's a chip on the shoulder guy.
Got a great pocket presence.
I think in skill set he's Russell Wilson. Very mobile, not the greatest of arms, but very effective runner and very effective thrower.
I got to see more.
I
really do. I'd have to watch. I have to watch some of the throws.
Because Joe's more runner, able to get you some useful yardage on the scramble than Drew Brees.
Right.
And I think Drew Brees is a better thrower
than Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
but that's not taken away from
No,
Joe,
no, no.
or
I mean,
what
we're
is
splitting
effective.
hairs here.
I think what Joe Burrow is a winner,
Mhm.
and he's a leader, and he's a competitor. So he has all the intangibles that you need to check off. I need to see more of him, and I got to see some of the. I see the easy throws. I just have to see some more tough throws. Not saying that he can't make them. I just want to see if he's throwing guys open in his anticipation. I do know this. He's a son of a coach. I'm biased towards sons of
Mhm.
coaches because I think there's a certain passion that's instilled in you at a very young age. He wants to be good. I don't think the moment's too big for him. He's not afraid of a challenge, and he doesn't wilt under pressure. All those things are good. I just don't know if I just have to see more of him throwing the ball. I'm not saying he's not good enough. I'm not saying he is good enough. I just need to see more of him. I do know this. He's been a great college